Now, if you watch Plant One on Me even a little bit, you'll know that we throw out quite a bit of Botanical Latin on the channel. In fact, since launching the channel in February of 2017, we've covered around 2,000 different species, varieties, and cultivars of plants, and almost all of them have some type of attributing scientific name. Now, folks ask a lot about this. Now, from like, why don't you add the common names of plants instead, to how do you and some of your guests even recall so much botanical nomenclature? So I thought we'd go through some basics of plant nomenclature, why scientific names are used in the first place, a little pronunciation exercise, and some other fun stuff on plant taxonomy.
This video is brought to you by Squarespace.
Before we get into the meat of plant taxonomy and nomenclature, let's first talk about why we usually don't use common names. And there are several related reasons for this. Firstly, there are no universal standardized common names. So typically different regions, language groups, and dialects will call the same plant by different common names, which, as you can imagine, can be very confusing. So, a plant called lithops, which you might know as living stones here in the United States, but it may be pianta sasso in Italian or stone plant in another area. And I think I'm pronouncing this correctly, but kaikikloki, which is in Afrikaans, which that translates into kitten's paw, which is another common name. And I'm sure there are dozens of other common names for this plant that I just don't know of or that I'm unfamiliar with. Now, secondly, people watch this channel from all over the world. So someone in Indonesia or India or the Philippines or Germany or the UK, for instance, will likely not be aware of someone else's common name for their plant. Now, what I do like about this is that when I do show some plant and I share the scientific name of that plant in the video, I will get commenters from different parts of the world commenting on what they call that plant in their native language. And I think that is like such good fun because common names often mean something special, like referring to a plant's look or its medicinal qualities, for example, or a number of other things. Motherwort, so I don't know if you're familiar with that plant. That is known as Leonurus cardiaca. And that one comes to mind because I noticed it actually growing in my friend's chicken run just some weeks back. And it's actually an invasive plant here in the United States, but it's pretty ubiquitous. And I grew up knowing it as motherwort. And motherwort really means it was like this concoction. It was given usually to pregnant women to stop anxiety or to take away any sadness. Or it's often used in like menstrual cramps or ovarian issues in folk medicine. Now, in Chinese herbal medicine, it's known as, and I'm going to mince this word, but it's like I think there's like a little thing, mu dao, and that translates into benefit mother herb. Sorry if you can't read my writing, I'm writing pretty fast on this. But that means benefit mother herb, and as you can see, it means like different things in different common languages, and it can mean something really meaningful in that language, but if you don't speak this language, or if you don't speak that language, it would be really meaningless to us. Thirdly, when you're able to actually learn the scientific names of plants, you can better see them for the relationship between them and that they have with one another. So, for instance, you may think like a plant like silver pothos or satin pothos is in the same genus as, say, golden pothos because their common names are similar to one another. However, silver pothos is in fact in the genus Scindapsus, and golden pothos is in the genus Epipremnum. So the scientific name actually reveals that these two, satin pothos and golden pothos, are in fact not in the same genus. Fourthly, occasionally plants that haven't been identified as having any, let's say like cultural or medicinal or edible benefits for humans are often not given a common name. So in some cases, the scientific name, if it's been identified and classified by a plant taxonomist, may be the only name the plant has. And lastly, I personally like becoming more proficient in plants, and I enjoy being able to help you, my viewers, become more proficient in plants as well. And part of that is offering the scientific names, which is a standard practice anyway. And that way, if a scientific name is given on this channel, or anywhere for that matter, you can at least look that name up and then go to a source reliably and get more reliable information on that plant, no matter what you call that plant in your language. So I hope that clarifies why we use the scientific names on the channel and over all these common names, because it can get a little bit confusing. Okay, so I guess the next thing we should tackle is the 7-part taxonomic ranking system, which is how we group organisms and then are able to determine how they're related to one another. So you can imagine it as this inverted pyramid, and it starts with kingdom, and then you have phylum, all right, and then you have class, and then you have order. I think I made this pizza too big. And then you have family, and then you have genus, and then at the tippy top of the base of the pyramid you have species. And I really concentrate in, at least on Plant One On Me, on the genus and the species on the channel. But if you are someone who has taken my Houseplant Masterclass, or you got the 125 houseplant care spreadsheet, then you'll notice that I also include the order and the family, because I really like to see how different genera, which is the plural of genus, are related to each other by widening the taxonomic scope. So as you go up here, you could see how they are all related in the plant kingdom. Now, there are more informal sub-rankings, and these are not like included in the pyramid, but you will have, subfamily. That would come after family. And then you have subspecies that come after species. And then you also have things like varieties. And then you also have something like forms as well and stuff like that. And I cover that more deeply in the masterclass as well, but it's going to be too in the weeds for this episode, so to speak, every pun intended. So we'll go forward with some other details, but at least you get a sense of like what this actually looks like. Now, if we kind of go over like just the binomial nomenclature, plants binomial nomenclature, the word binomial refers to the scientific name of an organism, which is composed of two words, one being the genus and the other being the species. So that is the binomial, 2 words. Now, the genus, or like I said, the genera for plural, is simply the rank that is above species and is below family. Now, this gets italicized, and it's usually written with the first letter of the name that is capitalized. So you can imagine my writing here is italicized. Let's try to make it italicized. So if I have Gasteria, and this is italicized. My writing has a left lean anyway, so everything looks italicized. Now the second part of the binomial is the epithet, and that is the species, and this comes right after the genus. It is also italicized, but the first letter of the word is not capitalized. So let's just say Batesiana. And so it's not a capital B, it's a lowercase b. So Going back also to that motherwort also, Leonoris, that I used before, Leonoris cardiaca, you could see that this is capitalized and this is not capitalized. And what's also nice about the scientific name is that it could actually mean something. So if you see the species name of Leonoris cardiaca has cardiaca, it sounds like cardiac, which actually refers to the heart. And that is meaningful because this plant was also given for heart health and to kind of lift overall mood, for instance. Now, I don't know this for sure, but the genus Leonoris sounds like Leo or lion, and I know one of motherwort's common names is lion's tail, referring to the way that the plant looks. So even the genus may have reference to that and may mean something that is descriptive. So sometimes species names are also named after a person. And when it's named after a person, usually the person who found the plant or is a friend of the person who found the plant, that becomes like a Latinized name. Or occasionally the species name refers to a place where that plant was found. So something like, I'm running out of paper here, Chinensis or Japonica or Japonica. If you look at this, it was related to China, and this is related to Japan. And so then you could tell, well, maybe that plant is from that area. Now, you may be wondering if there is one big rule book for this, and there is. It's called the International Code of Nomenclature for Algae, Fungi, and Plants, and that is who or what sets the rules or the recommendations that govern the scientific naming of all of these organisms. And for plants that have been cultivated and specifically selected by humans have another rule book, and that is called the International Code for the Nomenclature for Cultivated Plants. And that is, I think, fairly regularly updated because there's always new cultivars coming on the market. Now, the other thing to know is that Latin is a gendered language. So it's like Spanish in the sense that if you say, brown table, table is mesa, and so it ends in an A, so that's feminine. So that means that the adjective has to agree with the table. So it would be mesa morena with an A versus mesa moreno, which is with an O. So the epithet has to agree with the gender of the genus. And if there's a variation or a form off of that, then it also has to agree. And honestly, I don't remember to do this all the time. There's a lot of rules. But a great example would be Monstera, one that we all know, deliciosa, right? And it ends in an A and has an A. And then if there was a variegated variety that was found in the wild, which was the environment selected for it, it would need to be Monstera deliciosa var, or variation, variegata. So you see that has an A. So it wouldn't be variegatum, which is neuter, and then variegatus, this is neuter, this is feminine, this is masculine. So if a plant had a name, say Sylvaticus, which means sylvan or of the woods, Sylvaticus, whoops, you would see Sylvaticus and that would be a masculine word. And then if you found a variegated variety of it, it would be variegatus. So you'd see US and US. And so that would give you an idea of how you have to match the gendered language together. Now, if it's a cultivated plant, which was not found in the wild and specifically selected and cultivated by humans for a specific trait, it is known as, let's do another word here. Let's do another paper. It is known as a cultivar. And that is shortened for basically cultivated variety. You also could sometimes see it abbreviated as CV. Now you could tell if something is a cultivar because it will have a single quotation around it, and the words will be unitalicized, and the first letter will be capitalized. So an example would be, going back to my aloe care video back in the day, aloe black beauty. Now you can't tell with my writing, but this would be italicized because it's the genus. And then this would be in single quotations, or it could be aloe CV black beauty. That could be another way that you would actually do this, and both of those would be correct. Now, the cultivar names used to be able to be Latinized. So for instance, you would see something like Monstera deliciosa albo variegata, but that's no longer the case. You need to have the name of the cultivar and the word or the words of the cultivar needs to be in a modern language. So I'm not sure when that rule took effect, but it was probably not too long ago. But you'll actually see some names of cultivars Latinized, and that was like grandfathered in before that rule was in place. Now, I go into all of this name stuff more in depth in the masterclass, but I don't want you to have glaze over this, so let's move on a little bit to pronunciation.
I'd like to shout out to Squarespace, who is my sponsor for this video. Now, all of my websites, including homesteadbrooklyn.com, houseplantmasterclass.com, and even my personal website over at summerrain.net, are all built on Squarespace's platform. Now, this is for obvious reasons. They are this all-in-one platform that offers up slick, modern designs that provide incredible user experience. Now, you could customize their already primo templates, integrate your social media seamlessly, and even send out emails. And oh yeah, if you ever need help, their customer service is dope. So if you're interested in checking them out, you can use my link, squarespace.com/summerrain, for 10% off your purchase. Check out the link in the description below.
Now, admittedly, I do not pronounce everything correctly, but the way that I look at it is that when you are speaking a new or different language, the only way to practice is by saying the words. And if you feel too shy or meek to speak, then you'll never likely hear yourself say them. So you might as well just try to say them and risk getting it wrong than not saying them at all. I mean, do we like yell at a baby when they say sketties versus spaghetti? No, that's actually how we learn. So, personally for me, I started to learn scientific names when I was a kid because I liked looking at field guides, and I loved words so much that by the time I was 12, I got really nerdy and I read the dictionary twice and wrote down all the words in my notebooks that I thought were like really cool. And inevitably, you also come across Latin in those dictionaries because a lot of our words are derived from Latin. Now, by the time I got to college and had to take courses like natural history, it felt pretty natural to learn some of the binomial nomenclature of the species in that area. So like Acer rubrum, red maple, or Quercus palustris is like pin oak, and so on and so forth. And you start to learn scientific names, and it just becomes like second nature. And in a way, it starts to replace the common names of plants. Now, I probably know more of my native plants by common names because I'm familiar with them. But because I didn't grow up in a subtropical or tropical climate, I don't have a lot of that indigenous knowledge of their common names, and that's where most of our houseplants are from. So it naturally makes sense for me to refer to them by their Latin names, and that's how I learned a lot of our houseplants. But it really wasn't until college that I got to speak Latin with professors and students, and of course, when you're reading scientific literature, then you come across those words more, but oftentimes you're not like saying the names out loud, so you don't even know if you're pronouncing them correctly. And I go to lots of different countries and people pronounce them a little bit differently, and oftentimes it's how they view the words in their native language. A good few rules to follow are pronounce every single vowel and consonant. So let's go back to Leonoris that we used before. You don't want to mince any of these words together. You want to be able to pronounce every single one of these. So it's Leonoris. And if there are 2 syllables in a word, generally you'll want to put the emphasis on the first syllable. So if I use the word quercus, you're going to put that on the first. That will get emphasized more. And in any other words with like 3 syllables or more, generally you're going to stress the last syllable if it has a long vowel sound. And if it's second to the last syllable and has a short vowel, then the third syllable from the end is stressed. So those are like 3 rules. There's definitely like way more rules. Now in Latin, you'll often see double vowels, which are known as, really weird word, but diphthongs. And it basically means that these double vowels will form a sound when you're speaking them. And in Latin, each consonant, vowel, and diphthong is pronounced separately. Now, as I had mentioned, there are like so many other rules, like how to pronounce consonants and vowels and diphthongs. There is a lot that when I look at Latin words, I just naturally get it wrong because I'm used to how words are pronounced or how they sound in English. So a good example I just used before is this one. I'm more likely to say chinensis because in English, that CH is often pronounced with a ch sound, as in cheese or teach. But in Latin, it's often pronounced with a K sound. So sometimes I'll naturally say Chinensis because I'm accustomed to pronouncing the country of China, but it's more like Kinensis. And what I think is more important than pronouncing the names correctly is if you can find any meanings or clues behind those names. So if something has Kinensis after the name, whether you pronounce it Kinensis or Chinensis, then you would likely assume that it has some relationship to China or to the Asian continent. All right, I hope you appreciated this little lesson in Latin today, and if anything, I really do hope that it gives you more confidence in saying the scientific names of plants, even if they inevitably come out wrong.
Did you know that you can be a supporter of Plant One On Me? Well, take a look at our sustaining membership because through your direct support, it helps allow us to keep producing high-quality videos. And some of the easiest ways that you could support are liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and hitting that notification button to get these videos delivered to your inbox. If you're interested in furthering your houseplant education, then take a look at our courses and digital offerings, like Houseplant Basics for Beginners and the Houseplant Masterclass, both of which will give you a certificate of completion when you're finished with the courses. Information on all these offerings can be found on the website at homesteadbrooklyn.com.